Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing more of the Banished seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which once we pick our starting hand, our entire deck gets banished, fundamentally changing the cards we want in our deck. Today we're using another counter meta deck that is in many ways an alternate version to what we used last time, so let's go give it a look. So today we'll be playing a Scoia'Tael Nature's Gift deck that is in many ways the Scoia'Tael version of the Monsters Araka Swarm deck that we used last time, because both of these decks are in many ways a meta counter. That's because it is very common in this event to see your opponents use a bunch of high tempo point slams and even tall removal cards. But if we focus on going wide by spawning in a bunch of cards on the board, then that is much harder for our opponents to deal with. Now, in order to make that happen though, and still score more points than a high tempo deck, we need to make sure that we have a long round 3 in particular so we have time to set up our Symbiosis and Nature cards. In order to do that, we want to keep round 1 and round 2 as short as possible, because in this event, you aren't drawing cards in between rounds. That means round 1, we're either going to dry pass if we're on red coin, or if we're on blue coin and we have our stratagem, we might as well play a unit and benefit from that stratagem. And with that unit, ideally, we're either going for the Resilience from Gabor Zigrin in the melee row, or similarly, using Zoltan for Resilience as well. So if you do that in round 1, you then use your stratagem, and then at that point, you've put a fair number of points on the board pretty quickly, and either your opponent just doesn't even try to catch you, in which case you win round 1 quickly and easily, fine. If your opponent does play, and they have not yet caught you, pass, and then force them to play one more card to catch you. That means that they're going to be a card down. After going into round 1 and winning round 1, that means they're very likely to dry pass in round 2 because they're a card down and they didn't draw into any more cards. So that gives you an easy automatic round 2 win, where if you still have a Resilience unit, you can play it there. And then in round 3, you're going in that with a maximum length and maximum time to develop Symbiosis plus Nature. And of course, the deal with Symbiosis is when you have a Symbiosis card on the board and we have automatic Symbiosis 1 just from our leader ability alone, whenever you play a Nature card, you will spawn in a 1-power Wandering Treant. If you have additional point of Symbiosis, that means it's a 2-power Wandering Treant. Even more Symbiosis, 3, 4, 5-power Wandering Treants. So the more Symbiosis we have, the stronger those Treants become, and the more meaningful it is for us to spam our Nature cards. So, when it comes to what we're doing in round 3, that's where we break out the big Nature stuff. So, we want to ideally start with Freixenet in the range row, because over time, we can spawn in a bunch of Symbiosis cards with these young Dryads. With our leader ability, we can give Freixenet additional vitality, which will help lower this cooldown more quickly, so we can print out those young Dryads more quickly and trigger a bunch of Symbiosis more quickly. So that is something that you might want to consider, but bear in mind, if you do that, you're going to get a fairly highly boosted Freixenet that also has a powerful order ability, and it's going to become pretty obvious for your opponent that this is a card they want to deal with. So you need to bear that in mind, that if you invest heavily in Freixenet, it might be a card that your opponent will try to shut down quickly. But if it lasts, then of course, it gives you a ton of potential for long-term Symbiosis value when you play a Nature card. Then, we do have Devotion, which means by round 3, Eithne will fully evolve into Wrath of Broccolon, which means Symbiosis 3 and Immunity on 1 card alone, which is crazy value. Then we also have a bunch of Symbiosis coming from other units as well, such as the Hamadryad, which has Symbiosis, and when you give her Vitality, she also gets boosted 1 additional time per turn, so another good target for either leader ability or other Nature special cards that can give you Vitality. Similarly, the Guardian here, also Symbiosis, a little bit of damage, and the Abandoned Girl starts off as a unit that doesn't have Symbiosis, but once you use that order ability, she transforms into another young Dryad and has Symbiosis, so there's even more Symbiosis for you. And so you want to try to get a fair balance of Symbiosis and Nature cards to trigger that Symbiosis in round 3, and once you have those Symbiosis cards on the board, then you spam your Nature cards. And so, oh, and I almost forgot, Saskia is actually another way to get Symbiosis if you use her to get a young Dryad. Yes, she has Harmony, which means technically if you play other types of Scoia'Tael units, you can boost her slightly, but that's not a huge deal. She's mostly just here to give you one more way to get Symbiosis on the board. So yes, try to get that on the board as quickly as possible, and then you play your Nature cards so that you get as much value, as much power on those Wandering Treants as possible. So Those nature cards include Shaping Nature. Obviously, we don't have a deck, so that means that we cannot get the echoed copy of it, but it's still a powerful either 8 points or 5 points and 5 vitality, which on Freixenet and or on a Hamadryad gives you a ton of extra value, so that is worth considering as well, possibly even Veil in some situations. So that's your highest point slam nature card. Then you also have Zoltan's Company, which we have Zoltan Civay and Zoltan Warrior in our starting deck, so this is actually really solid tempo as well. Then we have Bountiful Harvest, which spawns in another unit, which may be beneficial for us, gives a little bit of hand boosting, and is a nature card as well, so this is another really powerful nature card for us. Then we have the Sorceress of Dol Blathanna, which on the surface may seem like an odd inclusion, but with her order ability, she has a very high likelihood to give us even more nature cards, and so that is another way to potentially trigger your Symbiosis. And Nature's Rebuke is one of our best sources of damage, so use that if your opponent has a key card you want to get rid of. If you can trigger that death blow, it is great, because we are, of course, going to have a lot of Treants on the board, so you should be able to get a couple extra points of value out of that. Then, outside of that, we have Dryad's Caress, which 3-point boost is not a huge deal, but the Purification, sometimes you'll find Freixenet gets locked, or other Symbiosis engines might get locked, so, or even Sorceress might get locked, so you're very likely to not only purify that lock, but also have a Dryad on the board to get the Vitality for 3 turns, which at that point, 6 points of value, plus the Nature, plus the Purification. That's a quite solid play. Then you have Tempering, and I mean, this is definitely the worst of our nature cards here. It's a 5-point boost. If you have a dwarf, it gives it armor. We do have some dwarves, so it's possible to benefit from that. Most significantly, Zoltan Warrior, like we were talking about, he does not have armor. If you have him on the board, he is the most natural target for that card, so that way that you can get, with Tempering, a couple of armor on him, and that means that you're getting a little bit of damage every turn out of Zoltan, turning him into an engine, in addition to a way to spawn in a bunch of dwarves as well. And that's what you're looking at, is basically keep round 1 and round 2 as short as possible, so that you have a long round 3 in which to start off by playing as many of your Symbiosis cards as possible, and then spam nature cards and spawn in some really powerful treants. And because your opponent may have a lot of tile removal, but does not like they have many ways to deal with a very wide board, and that's obviously what we're going for, it is very hard for the meta decks to deal with you. And for that reason, we are very good at dealing with the meta decks. So, let's go see this in action. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here, and we'll go first. Okay, and so we're probably looking for a combination of Symbiosis, and we can get great Symbiosis from Eithne, especially if we wait until round 3 to play her. And some nature cards to go along with that, and we do have several. A ton of resilience for what it's worth, which is interesting. Okay, I think I have a plan with that. We'll play 1 in round 2 and 1 in round 1 and 1 in round 2. But then this Tempering's not an amazing nature card as nature cards go. Okay, this is a whole lot more Symbiosis though. And in that case, maybe we keep our other nature cards, because that way we can benefit a lot from them. So let's start with one of those resilience units, either Gabor Zigrin or Zoltan. And either one of them is not going to be perfectly optimized by itself, because I think it is going to be the only card that we play in this round. Let's go Zoltan first. Actually, hold on. No, is Gabor first? I think it's yeah, Gabor first is technically preferable. Okay, so let's do that. And we'll boost him up with Tactical Advantage, because this is likely to be the only card we play in this round. Technically speaking, I kind of forgot to switch that stratagem to, we'd prefer to have the Djinn, because now this is a very obvious target for them to remove with tile removal. And this looks like a Nilfgaard meta deck, so that is definitely what they'll likely try to do, and that is also a very meta Nilfgaard card. This is a counter deck in many ways to that, so what we'll do here is we will now pass in this round, and if they want to catch us in this round, they'll need to play additional cards to catch us. And if they do that, then, unless they get rid of Gabor, we will have carryover going into the next round, which means we don't even need to play anything in the next round. But Imposter, for what it's worth, they don't get the resilience because it comes on deploy, and you don't get deploy when you spawn in a copy with Imposter. I mean, sure, okay, fair enough. It is a way to destroy him. But now, they have played one more card than us, and they've used their leader ability, so they may opt to drive past here. But we shall see, and of course, if they do, we have Zoltan for resilience again, and so that's what we will choose to use here. So let's do it. And in terms of rows, we want you in the range row. So I think let's leave the range row relatively empty here, and go for this in the melee row. So we're still getting our resilience here. So a little bit of carryover for us. And we get the long round 3, which is definitely best against Nilfgaard meta. Okay, and now what we'd like to do is get our Symbiosis stuff going as quickly as possible, really. And so Eithne is our best single source of Symbiosis, but over time, Freixenet can actually be worth more than that. So I think what we want to do here is probably use Freixenet, range row, spawn in a Symbiosis unit, and actually put the Vitality on you to reduce your cooldown. And how much Vitality are we willing to invest in Freixenet? Because the more we do, the quicker that cooldown will come off. On the other hand, the more we are inviting them to use some kind of removal on Freixenet, and I imagine they at least have Vilgefortz in their starting deck. Do they have it in hand? Not sure. This would be a great target for that, if they do. They're going to lock instead. Okay, well, for what it's worth, we can Purify and get more Vitality on a card that we want Vitality on. Now, we ideally have the maximum number of Symbiosis units on the board before we start breaking out all the nature cards. We might make an exception here, in this case, so that we can get, well, you unlocked as quickly as possible. So, and create more Symbiosis. So I think that's probably what we'll proceed to do here. And now, there goes the Treant, which is coming from 1 point from our leader ability, 1 point from you. And this should come off cooldown for our next turn. So their deal is very likely that they have a bunch of high-tempo plays. We'll try to poison, and do we have more Purification? I don't think we do, unfortunately. Not sure if they will have an additional source of poison. They may. But, of course, primarily, this is about spawning in additional Dryads. And so, yes, their whole deal is going to be primarily playing high base power cards and using Tull removal. So our goal is to go as wide as possible by spawning in additional young Dryads and Treants and making those Treants more powerful with cards like Eithne and Dryads. So I think let's go Abandoned Girl here. Let's do that. And again, Vitality on Freixenet to reduce the cooldown would potentially be useful here, but of course there's a reasonable probability that another round of poison is coming our way soon. So they steal our leader ability, but it's going to be significantly less effective for them, one would assume. So now we can convert this Abandoned Girl into another Dryad and get a whole bunch more Vitality. Now, technically, getting Eithne down there first in this row would have been a little more Vitality, but we may... I think we'll go with Eithne in this row, actually, just so we don't have absolutely everything clogging this range row here. She does have immunity, so it will be very difficult for them to shut her down. That is a nice thing about having the Devotion and waiting till round 3 to play her, and then we have a whole bunch of nature cards to finish things off, and Sorceress can give us a nature card to finish things off. So let's leave it at this for the time being. Okay, the Urchin. Some boost, and then they'll flip him at the end of the round. Alright, so now you're off cooldown. So create even more Dryads, and at this point we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Symbiosis. So every Treant that we spawn in is now going to be worth 9 points apiece, or 8 points, 8, a lot of points. A lot of points is the point. So we could destroy their significantly damage their Freixenet if we wanted to, or destroy their Urchin, which is probably the best play here. Yes, the longer we wait, the more valuable it's going to be, but at this point, you know, we probably just go all in on breaking out the nature cards. There you have it. It's 8 points. And I think we'll do it. So we can potentially sneak in one more of those Dryads before the end of the round. Obviously, this is now becoming a very big target for them to go after, but as we said, Freixenet has done its job. It has spawned in a bunch of additional Dryads here. Not this one, but the other ones. And that's made the Treants more powerful, so curious who they go after here. Well, it didn't really matter, to tell you the truth. So I think what we'll do now is we will play the Sorceress, and if she gets hit, which now after having played Assassination is much less likely, if she gets hit and not destroyed, we can boost her up a little bit with Nature's Gift. In fact, we might preemptively put that on her. And that way, hopefully, she can still pull off that order ability, and then we, of course, could go Tempering as well, which helps protect her further. So let's do this. And that, technically speaking, if they have Treason, they could destroy Eithne here, which would be a great play if they have that option available to them, but I'm not sure that they do. Okay, it's Tibor, which is just a point slam. And so this is what I mean. They have tall cards like Tibor. Alright, so now the Sorceress remains untouched here, technically speaking. If we're feeling bold, we could wait a turn, and then she'd be up to 6, which means we potentially could get Bountiful Harvest, which would probably be the best option for her. Would still go Tempering on her. In general, playing tall cards is dangerous. I mean, if they have tall removal, they'd probably like to use it on Freixenet, and speaking of which, let's do this before we forget. How do we feel about a 5 provision special card? Do we have anything that we'd prefer to remove on this turn? Eh, not really. I think we try. Okay, now the Wandering Treants are humongous. And, okay, admittedly, we did not really get the card we were hoping to get. We don't have a card in hand to boost, so let's just go Nature's Rebuke for the pure damage. And we'll use that to, I guess, hit Freixenet. Although, technically speaking, yeah, getting the death blow would be nice. We'll go after this young Dryad on our next turn with this Nature's Rebuke. It's a Snek on their last, or second to last turn, which is a little odd. Alright, so now, as I said, we'll go Nature's Rebuke here. Get the death blow to boost up one of our Treants and spawn in another 9.1 here, which is pretty huge and pretty hard for them to stop. We have a huge advantage here. So I don't even know if it is mathematically possible for them to catch us. They won't even try. So we'll take the win. Alright, so going up against Skellige here. And we'll go first. Okay, and we do have Eithne, which is a fantastic source of Symbiosis, so love that. And Freixenet is our other great source of Symbiosis, so this is a fantastic combo. As we're on blue coin here, we will likely still play in this round 1 and maybe go Gabor turn 1, Melee Row for the Resilience, use our stratagem on him, get a boost, and leave it at that. And we'd like to have a combination of the Symbiosis here and nature cards to trigger that Symbiosis. We have 1, 2, 3, 4... 5 ways to do that, and actually even more Symbiosis cards as well. So I think that'll do. Could potentially try swapping you out for something better, but I think this is sufficient. So let's go Melee Gabor. And technically I had intended to switch this over to the Magic Lamp, because generally speaking, going tall in this event is not a great idea, because there's a lot of tall removal. So we are just inviting it for so many reasons on Gabor right now. What with the Resilience, the 10 base power. Okay, they'll purify the Resilience, but they do not outscore us unless they use some leading ability charges here, and they don't. So I think we will still pass now. And what that does is that forces them, if they want to win round 1, to go a card down. And since they can't draw cards in between rounds, that is going to mean they're permanently a card down. I imagine they'll take that bait, because it's a fairly easy way for them to catch us. Okay, ooh, and it's lock. Okay, I mean, yeah. Glad to see them get rid of that. All right, and the question is, now that they're a card down, yeah, do they play or do they dry pass? They dry pass. That's what we wanted them to do. Because that means we now have a long round 3, which is what we're looking for, to maximize value of Symbiosis and nature cards. So what is our throwaway is the question. We actually have, I think, a lot of Symbiosis. Between these two, this combo alone is worth a ton in round 3. So I think Symbiosis may be more expendable than nature cards right now. So let's go with maybe Abandoned Girl. And she's our throwaway to win round 2. Alright, and now Eithne has fully evolved, so she has Symbiosis 3, which is amazing. And generally speaking, our go-to on turn 1 would be Freixenet. The problem is, with 2 leader ability charges remaining, they could immediately destroy it. So that's a little scary, but we might just do that and try to bait out those leader ability charges. We'll at least get one of those young Dryads on the board. Let's throw a leader ability charge in, because that will help us get off cooldown more quickly. This is still going to be low enough that they could double leader ability and get rid of it. But if they do that, then obviously this is a great card that we'd like to stay on the board, but it means it is much safer to play these two. Okay, Melusine. That's telling. Okay, is it going to be 2 charges? I imagine it is at this point. It is. Yeah, it's the right play, I think. It is probably the right play. So, for what it's worth, 5 damage, 2 damage, as things currently stand, is sufficient to take you out. I doubt Melusine is going to stay on 7 power, but we theoretically may have just enough damage to get rid of her. The sorceresses may give us additional damage. Bountiful Harvest may give us additional damage. At this point, though, I think we're looking to get... let's go with the Guardian. So we have Symbiosis setup, yes, but also the damage potential for the next turn, if we would like to use that to try to take out Melusine, see if she's in removal range. And we're going to try to split our units between these 2 rows as much as possible so that it is a difficult choice for them to decide where to put Melusine's reign. Now you're 8. Which is not quite enough to get you into removal range yet. On one hand, we'd like to get all of our Symbiosis cards on the board, then play all of our nature cards to maximize the value out of the treants that we spawn in. On the other hand, if we can shut down their most important card, then maybe it's worth going out of our way to make that happen. I think either way, we would probably still need to get the Sorceress down here first. Sorceress looking for damage from her. Guardian, damage from you. And Nature's Rebuke, damage from you. On our next turn, I think is the setup we're looking for. Although, tempted to use this damage here, because this might get destroyed. Svalbard Priest, yeah, they're going to put another card next to Melusine, but they do use her order ability, so they do weaken her there. So she's back down to a 7. She's in removal range. I say we take her. I say we take her out. Now, there's a chance they have something like Sidrif is right, but I think it's still worth taking our chances here, getting rid of Melusine now. So, yes, we only have 2 Symbiosis cards on the board when we do this, but I think that's still a sacrifice worth making to remove Melusine and get a slightly smaller treant out of this process. I mean, we could see what we get at. You'd need to be a 5 to destroy Melusine, right? Yeah. Yes, that's not going to be sufficient. So yeah, it does have to be Nature's Rebuke. Technically speaking, we should have done it in that order of operations, would have gotten the death blow. Could wait on Sorceress, and she's going to get hit by 1, she's going to get boosted by 1. We'll do it, though, because I'd like to boost you to keep you alive, otherwise you would have gotten destroyed by the rain. And that means we keep 1 more Symbiosis unit alive. So unfortunately, Svalbard Priest next to Olaf is still a solid combo for them. So even with Melusine removed, they still have some good stuff happening here. I think at this point, we'd like to get Eithne down for when we use any of our subsequent nature cards, and then we have all the Symbiosis that we're going to get. So let's play you. And I think we'll save this for when we ultimately play the Sorceress, although she's going to get hand boost from Bountiful Harvest, which should make her a little bit safer. Okay. We have some boost. Yeah, and that's the right target for them to go after. Was a smart move. Was a smart move. But now we go, I think, Bountiful Harvest. We have all the Symbiosis we're going to get. Yes, they got rid of a little bit of it just then. But, well, technically, Dryad's Caress. We're going to miss out on the Vitality if we play this last. Which is what we're looking at the moment. But I think we might have to live with that. Otherwise, I mean, well, technically, it's 3 points of Vitality versus 2 points of hand boosting. That is actually worth more, for what it's worth. So, I mean, I guess, for that reason. Guess for that reason, we'll do this. It's Sorceress next turn, and then it's finished with Bountiful Harvest. And we might as well add some Vitality here, just to make sure we have time for that. Well, no, we'll do that on the Sorceress. So at this point, we have, what, 3, 4, 5 Symbiosis, so we're spawning in 5 power. Wandering Treants. Did they just heal Olaf? Because they did not want to do that. That was a little bit odd. I mean, yes, it gave them a Deafening Siren, but you could have healed you. Yes, you're going to get healed from dealing damage, but they just didn't have a great target for the healing. So now it is Sorceress, and we use the Sorceress with Nature's Gift to give us one more Nature card on our next turn. And as we said, Bountiful Harvest, not going to get the hand boost here, but the Vitality was worth using instead. Okay, that's not a great Restore either. That was supposed to be on Melusine, presumably. So we denied them that opportunity. So now we have 2 nature cards in this turn. What we're getting from Sorceress and what we're getting from Bountiful Harvest. Is there any reason to go Bountiful Harvest first? Potentially. Potentially. Let's see what we get here. Okay, oh. Could have been fantastic if we got this out a little bit earlier, but of course we had no way of knowing that was going to happen. Elven Seer, though, that could be fantastic too. So we play you, and then we use this Sorceress, and we want to find something we can use on that Elven Seer, and we can do that with Dryad's Caress. Yeah, it's not perfect because we won't have time for the Vitality, but we do still get another round of it, and that means we spawn in another Wandering Treant, which is great. So it should definitely still be worth it. We have a big lead here. Can they find a way to catch us? It's Skellige, which is a point slam, and they get the boost from that order as well, but it is not enough to catch us. We'll take the win. Alright, so going up against monsters here, and we'll go first. Alright, so we're looking for a combination of Symbiosis, which with Eithne is fantastic. There's a little more Symbiosis here, and ways to trigger Symbiosis by getting nature cards either directly or through the Sorceress of Dol Blathanna. So that is nice. And Zoltan is also a big play as well. I think... I mean, we are on blue coin, so we probably do want to play one unit specifically here. Don't have a great one unit to play, however. Let's switch you out. Oh, Freixenet is fantastic, but... Okay, we'll leave it at this. We still are somewhat lacking when it comes to having one go-to unit here, because everything... is good, is the problem. And we don't really want to just use a throwaway card here in that case, but maybe we go with the Guardian is probably the most disposable. Probably. Yeah, I think we go that route. So we'll play you, and we'll use our stratagem as well, which gets us up to 9 points, which would be difficult but not impossible for them to catch in one turn. And our plan here is to just pass on our next turn, and hopefully if they don't catch us, that forces them to go a card down if they want to win round 1, and likely means they would dry pass in round 2, giving us a free round 2 win, and that guarantees that we have a long round 3 in which we can really benefit from triggering all those Symbiosis cards as many times as possible. Alright, it's the Apiarian Phantom, which is not enough by itself to catch us. even after that boost. So I think we do stick to that plan here and pass now. And that means they could very easily win round 1, and we're fine with that. But it means they're going to have to go a card down to do that, and since they won't draw cards in between rounds, that means that is a permanent card down, and likely means that they would dry pass. Oh, no! In round 2, they'll give us the round 1 win on even cards. Well, in that case, let's still dry pass here, force them to play an extra card to take round 2 and give us card advantage and double laissez in round 3, which will be very helpful and still give us a long round 3 to work with, which I think is also the primary thing that we're looking to do here. Okay, and it is Scoia'Tael. That is a big point slam to use there. That's a little bit odd. Alright, so they'll go first. We now have, of course, a fully evolved Eithne, so she has Symbiosis 3 and Immunity, which combined with even more Symbiosis, and not that many ways to trigger it, but hopefully if we can make a point of getting everything Symbiosis down there first, we can really benefit from playing those nature cards. Okay, Zigrin. 7 armor. 7 armor. Would be pretty difficult to take it out, but with Sorceress, that could give us around 5 damage potentially. And Zoltan actually can give us a decent amount. I'd like to wait one more turn, though, before we play him. So I think we go Freixenet first here. Needs to be range rail. Spawn in a young Dryad, and then give Vitality to Freixenet, which means we'll get off cooldown more quickly here, so we can spawn in more young Dryads more quickly. In fact, not sure how much control monsters are going to have, so I'm going to take a bit of a risk here. Against anyone else, I probably wouldn't do that. That's pretty risky, but it does mean that we are guaranteed to get Freixenet off cooldown on our next turn, which is pretty sweet, and they're just playing an Elder Bear, which is not of particular concern to us. So now we have 2 Symbiosis units on the board already, which is great, and may want to go Saskia for even more Symbiosis here. Yes, she's a Harmony card, but that's secondary. Obviously, Eithne is a huge source of Symbiosis as well, as are you. You also do benefit from receiving the Vitality, although it's a little bit of a competing priority, putting Vitality on you and putting Vitality on Freixenet. So I think might even, I mean, still have Vitality remaining here, so Freixenet should be fine for the time being. Let's go Hamadryad here for even more Symbiosis setup. And now it is not a bad time to break out Zoltan. Spontaneous Evolution for a huge point slam on the Elder Bear. Okay, now that makes more sense. Spawn in even more Dryads. And yeah, we'll go Zoltan. I mean, if we were to get Saskia down first, we get 1 point out of Harmony, but like you would turn earlier, we're getting additional damage, which, given how they have a Zigrin that we might be able to destroy, that would be kind of nice. Deliberately doing this in the melee row so that we have even more room for Freixenet to do its thing. And, I mean, if we wanted to, we could use our last leader ability charge here to make sure Freixenet is coming off cooldown immediately on our next turn as well. Again, very aggressive, but I think it still does make a lot of sense because it doesn't seem like they're doing much control-wise to stop us here. They are going very greedy, very tall, which, I mean, we don't actually have much in the way of tall removal, but then again, I am not terribly concerned because they've done nothing to shut down our Symbiosis printing engines thus far. So we right now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Symbiosis already. We can get 9 Symbiosis once we play Eithne and 10 from Saskia. So it's going to be pretty ridiculous once we do choose to break out the nature cards. So I think we'll go Saskia here, and we'll use her to create another young Dryad. Okay, Iris for Vitality. Sure, sure. More Dryads, please. And also, big Dryads here as well. Alright, so now we have more or less all of the Symbiosis setup we're looking to get here. Might be able to get a tiny bit more out of Freixenet, but not going to be off cooldown yet in this case. So why don't we go with the Sorceress here, because it's going to take a turn before we can use her anyway. And although, then again, Bountiful... Yeah, we should go Bountiful Harvest to get the hand boost on her, right? Let's do this. And... do we have enough special cards remaining? Assuming we get this order ability off, we will, to boost up the Elven Scribe. So I think we go for that. Yeah, let's do that. And we have so much Symbiosis. We are spawning in 11 points Wandering Tree Ants here. 11 points. Spirit type, I mean, yes, they're going crazy point slams here. The thing is, they're getting 12 points out of their 12 provision cost or 11 provision cost cards. We're getting 11 points out of tokens at this stage, which is pretty insane. At this point, we need to be kind of careful. We might need to cut ourselves off. Otherwise, we might run out of space to spawn in those tree ants. So I think we might actually deliberately withhold Freixenet here. So we do still need room for the Sorceress. And yeah, like with Sorceress, we don't have room in the melee row anymore, do we? No. Yeah, so with Sorceress, that takes up one spot. We have 2 spots remaining. We have actually 3 special cards we're going to play. 1 from you, 1 from you, and 1 from you. So that's plenty for triggering the Symbiosis, and don't have enough board space for that last tree ant anyway. So if anything, might like for them to destroy something here. But no, they're all in on going tall here. Of course, we have double last say. So yes, they have passed us, but we have plenty of setup remaining here. So we can proceed to do, well, how about the boost? Take your pick who you'd like that to be on. Vitality on Hamadryad actually probably would have been best, but, you know, we'll just pop one of these. There's our 11-point Wandering Tree Ants. Do this. Bountiful Harvest. I mean, technically we didn't have anything. We actually didn't want to do that because it's going to take up board space as well, which means no Tree Ant. And we didn't have anything in our hand either. So, you know. Normally it would have been best. In this case, it actually wasn't, but it's okay. We spawned in the tree ant first anyway. And, well, that is more than enough for us to catch them. Yes, Dryad's Caress gives us a boost, gives us vitality, and it would trigger this Elven Scribe, but we've proved the point here. 11-point Wandering Tree Ants with all of our Symbiosis is pretty sweet. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here, and they'll go first. Alright, so we're looking for a combination of Symbiosis, which with Eithne we have a lot of, and Freixenet. Those are our 2 best Symbiosis cards, so that's great. And nature cards to trigger that Symbiosis. Yeah, we're actually very, very much more Symbiosis heavy and not looking at that much in the way of nature cards. So I think we'll dump the Abandoned Girl, which is our weakest Symbiosis card that we have here. Saskia is also a Symbiosis setup card, but it's at least a little bit stronger. 2 Dwarves, I mean, they both have Resilience. Having one of them is nice, but I think we still are in need of more nature here. And Sorceress can give us nature, so I think that is still an upgrade. Okay, Magni Division. And the Djinn. So I think what we do here is we just pass right now and allow them to win round 1, but it means that, of course, they're playing a card and we are not. They won't draw into a card going into round 2, so that 1 card disadvantage will remain a thing. And so the hope is that that encourages them to dry pass here, but they don't. And in fact, Nausicaa Sergeant, I mean, yes, it's a small card, but it's an engine, and therefore might just be the start of a whole bunch of other things that they want to play. So, I mean, our plan was to go Zoltan. So we will use him here, but he is not single-handedly enough, so we will need to break out a leader ability charge here, so that if that was just a throwaway, we can still pass and leave it at that, but I imagine they're going to do something. They are not going to be pleased with us throwing down Resilience here. Okay. I mean, they might have Vilgefortz to remove this Zoltan, so in that case they can negate the boost they just gave, but I mean, this might also just be a throwaway of sorts. Trying to plead this out. We don't like to get bled because we want a long round 3. But let's see, just taking account of Symbiosis and nature cards, what are most expendable here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Symbiosis versus 1, 2, 3, 4 in the way of nature. So I think we're looking to go Symbiosis here. And what if we do Saskia? And with her, we could set up Symbiosis. We probably should. Probably should in case we are forced to play further here and find ourselves using a nature card. We can at least get a little more value out of that. Okay, here's Leader ability, and it's Eithne. And that's a pretty powerful card. Obviously, she's stronger in round 3 than she is in round 2, but that is still pretty significant that they swiped her. So now the question becomes, was that just an attempt at tempo passing and putting up a ton of points and making it hard for us to catch them? Or are they going to try to continue to push further here? So that is significant because that affects how much we're willing to invest here. Bountiful Harvest in some ways is nice because it gives us that hand boost, so there's some carryover value there. It's probably not enough in and of itself, though. It definitely is not enough in and of itself. We're expecting that we will need to play more, and I think maybe the Guardian makes sense. It's, yes, Symbiosis to make future nature cards more effective, but it might be small enough that it encourages them to pass here and think they can get us at a disadvantage going into round 3. Alternatively, maybe they're thinking, well, we can keep on pushing and not have an issue. Well, it's rent-free. Not pleased about that. And I am curious to see who they destroy. I mean, Zoltan is perhaps the most obvious choice, yeah. But could have justified getting rid of a Symbiosis unit of some variety as well. Okay, so our plan to make round 3 be a long round has significantly backfired, or at least they have not cooperated. So that hinders us significantly, substantially. This is gonna hurt. One way or the other, this is going to hurt substantially. So we could start to look at some nature, as we do have 2 Symbiosis cards on the board now. I think we might want to go Bountiful Harvest. Let's hit one of you, so that if we have a card that has damage, we might be able to get some death blow happening here. Purification doesn't really matter. I think we're looking at the Swordmaster here. So now that does proc the Harmony, and we are getting 3-point Wandering Treants at this stage, because we have 2 Symbiosis engines and our built-in Symbiosis as well. Yeah, they're playing everything. Alright, forget about planning for round 3, we'd have to go all in. We'd like to save Eithne, but we can't guarantee that. The key problem here is that Freixenet needed to be our first turn play. If we were expecting for this round to go long, and we obviously didn't do that because we were trying to save it, but we have to at this point. There is no choice. There is no alternative here. Getting the Vitality means you get off cooldown more quickly, which we might need to go all in. I think we have to go all in on Vitality here to get you off cooldown automatically, immediately on our next turn. We can deal some damage as well, and just trying to set up a nice death blow for Nature's Rebuke, potentially. Alrighty, Var is going to shift power with 7 points. Saskia, could have been worse. Could have been worse, and also their passive was the one that gives them boost when they play units, depending on what's adjacent to them. So, I mean, that's not ideal either. So, spawning in more of the Dryads. And at this point, we want to get Symbiosis on the board and then play the nature cards. We'd love to save Eithne for a 10-point slam in round 3, and ideally at least 1 nature card to benefit from that Symbiosis, but don't know if that's going to be the case. So, go Hamadryad here. So that is the last of the Symbiosis cards that we would be willing to play. And I say that, but don't really want to play further. At this point, we now do need time to set up. So we kind of want them to play at this stage, because we need time to use our nature cards at this stage. So now, just hit somebody. Trying to keep people around 5, because that's the perfect number for Nature's Rebuke. Technically, we should go Sorceress here. So we have a turn. Next time, we're not catching them on this turn, right? So we need a turn to set up Sorceress, so we should play her here. Alright, it's poison on the Sorceress, which is not going to be quick enough to stop us from using her. And we're one turn away from getting that. But, yeah, this is going to have to be probably Nature's Rebuke here. I mean, we're, I think, going to run out of space for Zoltan's company. It's going to be, what? 2 dwarves, 1 for Zoltan, 1 more for Zoltan Warrior, so 4 dwarves plus 1 of the treants. We have 5 spots here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2 spots here. So, I mean, there is room for the moment. Let's hit somebody. Let's use this. And possibly even purify ourselves here. And then let's Nature's Rebuke. I'm a little concerned about maybe even teleportation. I kind of doubt it, but just in case. And we have almost caught them here. Leo does have enough to destroy something. Okay, but they played everything. Which means if we can catch them in this round, then they don't have anything in round 3, so we win. What is worth more? Eithne is what? Spawns 2 young Dryads, which are... That's a total of 10 points. Whereas this is a nature card and spawns in those rowdy dwarves as well, so I think this is worth more. And with the vitality here, we can pass them on this turn by 1 point. They have nothing to play in round 3, which means Eithne is all we need to win the match, and so they will forfeit. So there's a look at a Scoia'Tael Symbiosis deck for the new Banished seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.